Hello, my name's Andreas Booty, and today is June 21st, 2020, and I'm going to explain the cardiovascular system. The cardiovascular system is a loop. This is my simple rendition of the cardiovascular system, but I'm going to start from the right atrium of the heart. Um, so at the right atrium of the heart, the function of the right atrium is pretty much to receive blood from the inferior and superior vena cava, and this blood is deoxygenated. So as the right atrium receives blood from the inferior and superior vena cava, the blood passively goes to the right ventricle, and as it goes through the right ventricle, it passes through the tricuspid valve or the right AV valve. Now, the right ventricle's function is to contract and expels blood from the right ventricle into the pulmonary arteries. As the right ventricle contracts, the tricuspid valve prevents blood from going back into the right atrium. Now, the blood is expelled through the pulmonary arteries. Inside the pulmonary arteries, pulmonary artery, there is a pulmonary semilunar valves. And the function of these valves is to, when the right ventricle relaxes, the blood does not come back into the right ventricle. Now, pulmonary arteries have kind of like two ways to it. There's a right pulmonary artery and a left pulmonary artery. The right pulmonary arteries, they go to the right lung, and the left pulmonary arteries go to the left lung. And at this point, remember that it's still deoxygenated blood, and these arteries carry blood away from the heart into the lungs. And in the lungs, these arteries becomes capillaries, where there's only one layer in that vessel to promote to have gas exchange to occur. And at this point in the lungs here, the oxygen, since the lungs, when you inhale, the alveoli in the lungs are full with oxygen, and the oxygen will transfer into the blood in the capillaries, and they're gonna become oxygenated, and as the CO2 as well, to be transferred into the lungs so they can be expelled out. Now, after the capillaries to the lungs, now the vessels become pulmonary vein, and there's a right and left pulmonary veins. Uh, the right pulmonary veins come from the right lung into the left atrium, and the left pulmonary veins carry blood from the lung into the left lung into the left atrium. Now, the left atrium, just like the right atrium, it receives blood from the pulmonary veins, and blood hence transfer passively into the left ventricle. The function of the left ventricle, again, just like the right ventricle, is to contract and expel blood into the aorta, which is the largest artery that we have. Um, as the left ventricle contracts to prevent blood um, from going back into the left atrium, we have the left AV valve, or the bicuspid valve, or the mitral valve. Um, and as the blood contracts to the aorta, as the left ventricle relaxes, to prevent that blood from coming back into the left ventricle, you have the aortic semilunar valve. Um, and from there, the blood travels to the aorta, to the aortic arch, and the descending aorta. And then as it goes, then the blood goes through the systemic circulation, um, to go to the various part of the body to provide them with nutrients and oxygen. Um, and as it nears to their target tissues, they receive the vessels become from artery to become smaller in size, and in their composition of the wall to and it's called arterioles. And then when in their target tissue, it becomes capillary, where again, just like in the lungs, it has one layer. So these arteries carry blood from the heart, or specifically from the left ventricle, into the rest of the body. Now in target tissues, gas exchange occurs again, and this time is the oxygenated blood, and O2 and hemoglobin releases O2, and it goes to the target tissues, to the capillaries, and in exchange, these tissues give off CO2 to the blood, so it can be carried back into the heart and the lung. And after the capillaries, to carry blood back to the heart, it becomes venules, which is a type of vein with thin walls, and then becomes thicker and it becomes veins. And then near the heart, you have the inferior and superior vena cava. And again, I need to remind you that these veins have the oxygenated blood. And also it carries blood to the heart. Inferior vena cava receives blood or transfers blood from the lower and middle part of the body into the right atrium, and in superior vena cava transfers or carries blood from the upper part of the body into the right atrium, and then we are back into the right atrium um, of the heart, and that circle will happen again. Thank you.